All right, hello friends. Welcome to Gather Party. I'm your host, Kevin, a husband, dad, and lifelong gamer. And today I have a special episode. It's going to be a little bit different than the usual gaming news. And I have a very special guest today, a fellow dad, a very special dad, my dad, the man, the myth, the legend, Dale Ritchie. How you doing, Dad?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to have you on. When I first had this idea to start a podcast, I thought of having you on as like one of the first guests because I thought it was going to be a podcast about being a dad. And then I realized I didn't quite know enough about being a dad to really share anything valuable to anyone. So I kind of went the video game route, but I'm hoping to still incorporate some of that. So that's kind of what today is, getting to incorporate some of the dad wisdom. And since I don't have any, I brought you on to share your wisdom.
Hopefully I have some. It's worth listening to.
Oh, yeah. I think you definitely do.
You must gather your party before venturing forth.
How you been? How's life going?
Life's going great. Just
Retirement's good?
Yeah.
Is it everything you hoped it would be?
Pretty much. It's good stuff. Just, being in a new house and all that. And pretty cool.
I had my third grade teacher just retired, and she was still working at the school that I work at. Yeah. And she was pretty, she had mixed feelings about retirement. She was pretty sad about it. When I asked her how she was doing on the last day of school, she said she was still a little numb.
Yeah. I was not.
You were excited to
I was ready to go. It was all good with me.
Yeah, she was in the classroom those 30 years, so she never did admin or anything.
Yeah,
so.
That's probably why she was sad to leave.
Desensitized.
All you do is go to admin and you'll be ready to go when the time comes.
Yeah. So I got some questions for you, and we'll talk a little bit about video games, but I want to go all the way back to the start of when you were born, April 21st, 1959.
That's correct.
In the beautiful city of Dos Palace, which roughly translates to two sticks in Spanish. Most people probably never heard of Dos Palace. Pretty small town. Do you know what the population's at now? They're around 4,000.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably between 4,000 and 5,000. I don't think it's much different than it was when I was there, but it seems like it's smaller and there's less going on. But I'm not there very much,
So most people haven't heard of it. For anyone who's never been to Dos Palace, how would you describe its location in California? We do have some listeners even from out of the country. I have 13% of my listeners are in Germany, so I don't know who is in Germany that's listening, but shout out to my German friends.
Okay, well, even when I tell them where it's at, I don't think it's going to, they're going to understand too much about what I'm talking about, but it's pretty much in the center of California. It's about 60 miles northwest of Fresno, between Fresno and Los Banos if you're heading out towards the Bay Area. The Los Banos is the closest. I don't know if you'd call it a city. I guess Los Banos is a city now. It's pretty big, but it wasn't always that way. But that's the closest, what you would call a city to it.
Yeah, I feel like that's what everyone knows in that area is Los Banos because that's what most people travel through when they're driving that way. But yeah, small farming community. A lot of farmers there.
Right.
A lot of migrants. Our grandma migrated there from Oklahoma.
Yep.
So yeah, very small town. What was it like living there? How would you describe living and growing up in Dos Palace? What was your childhood like?
Well, I mean, typical small town. As you're growing up, I mean, you have your friends. I went to school with the same kids from kindergarten to I graduated from high school. I mean, there's not too many new ones came in and not too many left. It didn't seem like so. We were just kind of always together, and still have close friends from there. But I mean, we're all in different parts of the country now, so we talk through social media or texting or phone calls every now and then. But I mean, it was just a very, I guess, simple life is how I would describe it. I mean, when I grew up there was no fast food restaurants, or there's really still not any fast food restaurants. Yeah,
there's not. At least not like major chains. They got
no major
few local
chains.
Ones.
A few local ones. We had a movie theater, which was fun to go to. And usually it showed 2 movies a night. You went there, it was a double feature. Watched 2 movies a night. It'd go on Saturdays. It was really cheap to get in. I can't remember how much it was. I just remember it was really cheap on Saturday. afternoons. Usually they show like a cartoon before the movie started, and you see the movie. And for a long time, my dad worked for the newspaper. He was the newspaper editor, so we got to go free. It was like part of their deal with having ads in the newspaper.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so that's why I don't remember how much it really cost, because it didn't cost me anything to get in. Just
Yeah.
had, pay for your refreshments or whatever. But well, yeah, it was fun. A lot of sports, like unorganized sports. I mean, we had Little League and all that, but a lot of times it was just like meet at the school and hopefully had enough guys together to play baseball or football and basketball. It was kind of where we hung out.
Yeah, and I do remember that theater too. It was still open for a little bit when I was a kid. I think it closed down when I was like 8
think you
or
might have been
9.
there before.
Yeah, I went there. I saw
mean, the building's still there, but
Yeah.
it's not open right now.
Yeah, things close down, but usually new things don't move in.
No.
When they close down in Dos Palace.
Or they don't. They just leave the building there. They don't really tear it down.
Yeah, and I saw the movie Cars. I think was the last movie I watched there before it closed down.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think me and Grandma were the only 2 people
Probably.
in the theater that day. I remember
I've
there
been
not
in
being
there like
anyone in
that.
there.
Well, when I used to go there, it was just one big screen, and there was like a balcony, and then there was the lower part, and then later they divided it up into, I don't know, I think like 3 different screens. I think.
Yeah, I
2 or
remember
3.
there being at least 2.
Yeah.
But I only went in. I think I only went there a couple times.
Maybe only 2 because it wasn't a very big building, but.
Yeah. What was so I never knew Grandpa 'cause he passed away before I was born. You mentioned he was a journalist. What was he like as a dad?
Oh, my dad was very soft-spoken, calm, probably the calmest person you ever be around. Never really got too excited about anything or never got too, depressed about anything. He was just always very even-keeled and hardworking. He was a hardworking guy.
Yeah, because
many in his generation were like that.
Yeah, because he had multiple jobs from what I know. I knew he was a journalist, and I knew he did real estate for a little bit.
Yep.
And then he was also an English teacher
Yep.
for a little bit. Any other? He worked on a ranch.
Yeah. He started as a journalist. He was a journalism major, and he started working at the Dos Palace Star, and eventually became like a co-editor, or I don't think he was the main editor, but he did that for a long time. I'm not sure how many years he did that. And then decided to go into teaching, because my mom was a teacher, and so kind of just to synchronize their schedules a little bit. Because when he worked at the newspaper, it was just like long hours.
Yeah.
There was like no time off. Maybe Sundays was like the day off. And he didn't make a lot of money. Of course, in those days, nobody made a lot of money. Teachers didn't make a lot of money either, but I think they made a little bit more than he was making there. So he decided to go into teaching. He was in teaching. He was an English teacher. He was the yearbook advisor, the newspaper advisor at the school. I was actually in his yearbook class for all 4 years. I was in high school.
So you made some of the Dos Palace yearbooks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was the
never knew
editor of the Dos Palace yearbook when I was a senior, a co-editor with a friend of mine. So...
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah,
That's
he
funny.
did that, and then he moved over to the continuation high school and taught English. After he was done with being the yearbook and newspaper, he moved over to continuation high school, taught English. Loved it at continuation high school. I think he loved it partly because he could leave like at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, half days every day.
Yeah, and not have to stay too long.
Yeah.
They had a ritual, my dad and his friends, like almost every day they met at the little coffee shop, like at 3:30 in the afternoon. Farmers would all come from their farms, and business people would take that time off, and they would just like sit there, drink coffee, and talk for like an hour every day.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little happy hour.
Yeah. So, and then he bought a ranch. That was after I was out of college already. They bought a little ranch, 10 acres, and him and his good friend Bill Plate, who was a lifelong rancher, went into business together and raised cattle, and they had a couple horses. It was a neat little farm.
Yeah. And how old were you when they moved off of that farm?
They moved out to it, I think, in 1982, maybe. And then my father passed away in 1989. Might have been a little bit later. Might have been like 1984 before. I think he lived there about 5 years. Passed away in 1989, and then Grandma stayed there for a couple years after that, and then she moved back into the house where I grew up, because they still own that house.
Yeah.
So she moved back into that house, sold the ranch.
I know, and she just sold that house now.
And just sold that house, so we don't no longer have too much ties to Dos Palace anymore. A couple of cousins that still live there, and that's about it.
No, don't think you'll go back anytime soon?
Oh, I'm sure I'll go back someday for something, but probably a funeral of somebody.
Sadly, yeah, that's
Maybe my cousin's kids are past marrying age, so there won't be any more weddings. I don't think they're all married, but you never know.
High school reunion, maybe?
My class is bad about high school reunions. We haven't. The last one I went to, I think, was the 30-year reunion, 2007.
Okay, that's an impressive one.
So that was actually in Farball, because when I was in high school, Farball, there was no Farball high school. So all the kids from Farball came to high school in Dos Palace, so we all went to high school together. That's why it probably seemed like it was a lot bigger town than it was.
They were getting bussed over
because they were
Fireball.
getting bussed over, from Fireball. So they were there all day and then go back, either drive or bus. So we had it in Fireball. I don't remember how many people there. There was a good number of people there, but that was the last one I went to. I don't think they've had another one since. And they had one a few years back that was a combined, like 3 or 4 different classes together.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of high school reunions doing that.
I didn't go to that one. It was in Fresno, actually, but I didn't go.
Yeah, especially in small towns when you start to get a small turnout.
Well, Grandma, they still have theirs. I think they're down to only like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, I thought they stopped, but I remember her saying there was like 10, and then they're slowly getting smaller and smaller.
They've stopped now, but they were doing it like every year, I think, pretty much.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, Central, my high school didn't do the 10-year reunion. I did text some of my friends, though, on their 10-year reunion.
They didn't do one.
Happy 10-year. But I don't know who. I mean, usually it's the student body president that organizes it. I don't even remember who mine was when I was in high school.
I'm not sure who ours was either.
I'm sure anyone could just organize it, but
I think it's the class president, because I do know the student body president. He has nothing to do with it. I think it was our class president, and I'm not even sure who that was.
Yeah, Grandpa was pretty calm, pretty mellow. Dad,
just an old cowboy guy. Even before he had the ranch, he was like an old cowboy guy.
Yeah, what was Grandma like as a young mother?
Oh, Grandma was a great mother, very loving and caring. She worked. I remember her working most of the time, even though probably she didn't work, I think, until I started school. So it was just me and her at the beginning, because my dad was always at work. But then she went into teaching. So they were always around, because my mom was an elementary teacher and my dad was a high school teacher. So I saw him at school. I saw him at home. I was always around one of them most of the day. But I think, I was the only child. Grandma's told me they wanted to have more, but it just didn't happen. So they just had me.
Yeah, and back then it was different. You couldn't go to a doctor to get
they weren't
help
do
with
all
that.
I don't know if they would have done all that anyway, but
But you did live with people growing up, even though you didn't have any siblings. You had some foreign exchange students in the house. 2
foreign exchange brothers. One when I was a senior in high school. He was from Japan. His name was Yasunobu. Completely opposite of me. He wasn't like into sports, and that's all. I was into sports when I was in high school. That was the thing I did. He wasn't into sports. He was a musician, played the clarinet, was in band. So even though we were together, we kind of didn't hang out with the same people. He kind of made his friends in the band people, and so kind of hung out with them. But we were still living under the same roof, so we did a lot of things together. But he would come to the games and stuff, but and did not speak English very well at all. Barely spoke English when he got to the United States. So that was another just kind of a communication barrier there between us.
Yeah, but he obviously had enough
to get by,
and to read. He probably could read and write a lot better than he spoke.
He said they studied English.
Yeah,
but he didn't really speak it a lot.
Yeah,
like you said, it was just reading and writing on the most part. But he was a very nice guy. But he went back to Japan, and then I think my mom and dad had contact with him a little bit, but he just kind of faded away back to what he had.
Never tried to look him up on Facebook or anything?
I've never tried to, no. I think Grandma has before. I don't know if she ever made contact with him.
And then you had one other.
So then I left to go to college, and then they had another one come.
Oh, so you never. I thought
so
I
didn't
both
live there with
in
him.
High school.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I didn't live there. His name was Bjorn. He was from Norway, and he was probably a lot more similar to me than Yasunobu was. So it would have been a different situation with him if I would have been there full time. So I just really saw him at holidays.
Yeah.
He was he liked sports. He was a soccer player, but when he got to America, he went out and got on made the football team as a kicker. So he was their kicker and field goal kicker. And he liked to hunt, I guess, in Norway, where they kind of lived out in the country. So he liked to hunt, fish, and do things like that. Ride bike. He was into bikes. He used to ride. I had an old 10-speed that was at the house, and he used to ride it all over the place, my mom and dad said. And he spoke English pretty well, so he was able to communicate, and he kind of fit right in right away.
You said you were really into sports growing up. Was Grandpa into sports? Was he an athlete?
Grandpa was not. Grandpa told me I think he was on the track team for 1 year in high school, and that was the only sport he ever tried to do.
Oh, okay. Was he always pretty supportive of?
And he ran the 100-yard dash, he told me, which I have none of that speed in me. I don't know.
Yeah. He was a little bit shorter, though. Maybe that's why he was
He was about 6 feet tall, yeah. He wasn't too much shorter. About 6 feet tall. He's skinny, though. I don't think he ever weighed more than like 180 pounds his whole life.
Yeah, the pictures I've seen of him,
he
was always pretty
because
thin.
he worked so hard and worked so much.
Yeah.
But no, he was very supportive of what I did. I mean, anything I wanted to do. Him and Grandma always came to all the games, and even like home and away games. Seemed like they always came. Not so much when I started doing track, because nobody wants to go there, sit all day at a track meet to watch you run 1 or 2 races the whole day. But for football and basketball, they were very supportive.
Nice.
And because he was working at the high school at the time too, so
yeah,
he was supporting the school and supporting me and my friends. Because all my friends were in sports, so when they were around the house, it was always either football players or basketball players.
Yeah, so that's where the passion for sports came from, your friends growing up?
Yeah, because that's what we did. Played sports all day.
I got a question about parenting now for you. Now that we know a little bit about my grandma and grandpa, your mom and dad. This is a question I get a lot from my friends who are new parents. That everyone's influenced by how their parents raised them, both the good and the bad things. What are some things you really liked about how you were raised that you wanted to do when you became a parent? And what are some things you wanted to try and do differently than your parents?
That's a difficult question
It is hard
to answer. I don't know. I mean, I think that the things I do well are the things that they did. I mean, that's where you learn those types of skills. Like I said, they were very loving, very involved. We traveled a lot when I was a kid. So we had a RV, a travel trailer that we pulled behind the pickup. Mm-hmm. So we traveled a lot, and with family, cousins, and things. Summer trips, and any holiday we were usually gone somewhere to the coast or the mountains or somewhere like that. And like I said, they were very involved in what I was doing, very supportive. Like pretty much things I wanted to try, they were open to it. Whether it was like sports or clubs, or I even tried band for a while. That wasn't my thing, but they were supportive of it.
Yeah, I remember Grandma told me that she made you do it for at least 1 year because you wanted to quit.
Oh,
sooner
more
before
than that.
then.
I started when I was in the 4th grade. That's when you started band in Dos Palos. I did that first year, and I just did not like it at all. I said, I don't want to do it anymore. And they said, no, you're going to do it until you finish middle school, which was 8th grade in Dos Palos.
Oh, so they made you do it for 4 years.
So I did it until I was finished with the 8th grade. And then when I get done with the 8th grade, I said, no more. I'm done with this. I was not good at it. I didn't like it. I mean, there was fun times because when you get to middle school, then you start doing parades and concerts and things
I'm sure in elementary school
parades
it's pretty
were
boring.
fun because we travel all over the fairs, and you go march in the parade and you hang out like at the fair all day.
Well, I would say that's one thing you did differently then, because you never made me do anything that was, if I didn't like something, you would let me choose something else. I don't think you or Mom ever made me do something for multiple years.
Oh, no.
I didn't want to do.
But that was one thing. I think I got that. My dad always said, when you start something, you got to finish it. So like if I went out for football and I didn't like it, he would tell me, you got to finish the season.
Yeah. Yeah, and you did the same with me when I was a little kid.
Yeah, but he said if you don't want to do it the next year around. The band was different because they never really ended. Once you were in it.
Yeah.
You were in it.
Yeah, year long too.
It was like a class you had to go to every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one time, I think I was a sophomore in high school. I was playing on the football team, and we played a game, and I didn't get to play at all. I was like the only guy on the team who didn't get to play in that game, and I wasn't sure why I didn't get to play. And I told my dad, I'm not going back to football. I'm done with it. It's no fun. I don't like it. I'm not going back. He's like, oh, well, yeah, you are. And so I remember he took me to the coach on Monday. And I had to tell the coach I was, how come I didn't play and I didn't want to play anymore. And the coach was very good about it. And he basically said all that. He goes, if you didn't play at all, that's an oversight on the coaching staff, because we tried to get everybody into the game that we could. And we thought we had everybody. He said you should have said something. Well, I'm not going to go in the middle of the game and say, hey, coach, I'm the only guy who hasn't played.
Yeah.
But, so it worked out. And I actually came very close to that coach afterwards. He was a math teacher. I had him for math class. And he was my coach for 2 years after that too. So,
did Grandpa talk to the coach, or did he just show up and make sure you talked to him?
He really didn't talk to him too much. He just kind of said, "You got to go." He was at school, so it wasn't like I could get out of it.
Yeah.
At the end of the school day, he just said, "Let's go over, and talk to him."
Do you have any memories of times when when my brother or Heather or Jessica, my sisters, struggled with a sport or a coach or wanting to quit something?
No, not really that I can think of.
I think soccer was the only thing.
Soccer, well, you guys all played soccer, and I was kind of glad when that ended. But
yeah.
Those Saturday mornings were rough, getting up and getting over to the soccer field.
Yeah, and I remember basketball too as a little kid was harder for me.
Yeah. I
remember I did a camp. I think there was slightly older kids though. It was with your friend Lauren.
Yeah.
And it was like maybe 5th and 6th graders. Maybe I was like 3rd or 4th grade. I was a little bit taller.
Actually, it was with Coach Amundsen.
Oh, was it Coach Amundsen?
It was Coach Amundsen. It was his AAU team, and he wanted you on the team, even though they were all a little bit older. I don't know if you ever played any games with them, though.
No,
did you?
I didn't.
You just went to practice.
Yeah, I just went to practice with them.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very good, so that's probably also why it didn't pan out. But
yeah,
I
don't think they were older than you, so they were obviously more skilled. They've been doing it for a few years.
Yeah, I think he was trying to maybe just get me exposed to it. But I remember being it really shook my confidence a little bit in basketball, seeing those kids.
It backfired. What he was trying to do.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Because I wish I would have stuck with basketball a little bit longer. But I don't remember hating too many sports.
Then your brother wanted to do wrestling. You were just a baby. So we would go out to the Central West campus, I think once or twice a week in the evenings, and he would practice wrestling. I would take you, and you'd just run around I don't think you even were running around, crawl around on the wrestling mat. But he was the same way. He went to practice every week, but he never would go to a tournament and wrestle. He never would go to a wrestling match. He was just like, I don't want to do the wrestling match. I just like to go to practice. And the coach was like, oh yeah, it's fine if you don't want to wrestle.
Yeah.
In the matches, that's fine. So, but he only did it a year, and then he's.
Yeah, wrestling is it's a stressful sport.
Yeah.
For a little kid. I mean, I know there is lots of little kids who do it that really enjoy it, but I could see.
He seemed to enjoy practice, but he didn't want to wrestle in any tournaments.
He would have been a good wrestler, I think.
I think he would have been too. He was a good football player too. He only played football for 1 year.
Yeah, and got an award too.
He got an award.
Like
he was a really good
player.
Yeah, he was a really good player, but he just told me I don't like it. Well, that's fine then. Don't do it anymore if you don't like it.
Yeah. I know you get that question a lot when people find out how long you were a football coach for. You're about, was it 15 years, 20 years?
Well,
right after.
Yeah, total probably 20 years. I think it was 16 or 18 at Central, but I'd coach at some other places too. And I didn't coach football the first couple of years I worked at Central. Just coached basketball, but then I started doing football.
Yeah, and so usually when people find that out, then they ask me or Chris if we played football.
Right.
And then we tell them no, or Chris will tell them 1 year, and then they want to know why we never played football.
Right.
From what I remember as a kid, I don't think I was ever too interested in it. I would go with you to football games a lot, and I think I liked the sport, but I don't know if maybe I was too scared, or I don't know what it was. But I remember specifically in junior high, you asking me if I wanted to try out for the football team, and I said no. I don't know. I think I just didn't think I was going to be very good at it, and was too scared to go out there.
Well, I remember you being interested in doing it like in middle school, and you said you were going to do it, and you didn't. And then we went to, I think it was back to school night or something, or 7th grade orientation or something. And Coach Davis was there. He was the football coach at the middle school then. And he's like, Kevin, I thought you were going to come out for football. And he's like, you should still come out. We've already started, but you can still come out. And you were like, oh, okay. I get a physical and all that. And But then you went back to school on Monday and you came home. You go, Dad, I joined the water polo team, which worked out for you. I mean, that was awesome. But
Yeah. So yeah, maybe Jessica played water polo.
yeah, that
and
was
I
the
think
first year she played water polo.
that's so she exposed me to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe, it sounds like I just joined water polo just so I didn't have to go out for football.
Well,
And I had an
maybe, I don't know.
excuse- had an excuse to not be out on the football team.
Yeah.
Was that hard for you? Did you want me and
No,
Chris to play football?
not at all.
No, you didn't
Not at
mind?
all. I didn't mind. I'm not going to make you do something you don't want to do.
Yeah. I always thought, too, you probably knew I would be pretty bad out there, so you're
No.
saving me the embarrassment of going out there.
Thing with football is there's so many people on the team and you're just there and you kind of just get lost in the group.
Yeah,
I mean,
unless you're a key role player.
The great players stand out, but everyone else is just kind of in the crowd.
Yeah,
And even good players are just in the crowd because they may be in a position that's not, as glamorous or as visible.
Yeah.
Like linemen, you don't really see them doing things during the game. But
yeah. So I get that question a lot when I have to tell people you were a football coach, and well, you coached a lot of different sports,
Yeah.
but you coached football, I think, the longest out of all the sports, and you played football too for a long time as a kid, right? Or
Well,
did you
yeah.
start in high school?
I started in Pop Warner.
Oh, okay,
I played 1 year at Pop Warner and then high school.
Okay.
But I loved basketball when I was growing up. I didn't necessarily love football. I mean, I liked being on the football team because my friends were on there and we were really good. At that time, Dos Palos was really good in football, so we won like championships and things. So it was fun doing that. But
Yeah.
like I said, I was just kind of another guy in the crowd as far as players. And
Yeah, and I like basketball too.
Basketball's
I
a lot
wish I
more
would have
fun.
stuck with it a little bit more when I was younger.
And then I didn't do track until I was like a senior in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought you did it all through high
No,
school.
I didn't do it till this friend of mine talked me into coming out when we were seniors. It was like basketball ended in like springtime. Like I didn't have anything to do.
Yeah. Didn't want to go out for the swim team.
No.
I don't think did Dos
They
Palos
had a
in that
swim
one
team
back
at the
then?
time. Yeah, I had
Okay.
some friends that were on it, but yeah, no, I wasn't. I swam when I was a little kid, like on the, like what they called Central had the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
I think is that what they were called at the Central?
Yeah, back then they used to be called the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think they were called the
Red Cloud.
Dolphins in Dos Palos too, but that was when I was like in middle school, maybe 6th, 7th grade, somewhere around there. I swam for a couple summers doing that. Because it was just another thing to do. You could go to the pool every day. And
Yeah, it's a
and
good summer sport to
there
play.
wasn't too much else to do.
Not a fun winter sport.
No, we didn't do it in the winter. We didn't show
The
up. till-
hardcore swimmers go year round.
Yeah, I don't think we had any of those, but
Another thing I wanted to ask you is going back to parenting. My siblings are half siblings, for those of you that don't know our family. And I never, they were all very young when you and my mom married. So even as a little kid, I never even thought about being half siblings with them. We've always,
Right.
just call each other brother and sister. But as I got older, I realized that's pretty impressive to marry someone who has 3 kids already. When I was starting to date and marry, I don't think, someone with 3 kids, I would probably run the other way if I started dating someone. Not to give a bad rep to any single moms out there, but it was really impressive to think about that you would, kind of jump right into that stepfather role. And you didn't have any kids before then either when you met mom, so you were going straight from, not being a dad to being the
Right.
father of 3 children. What was that like, jumping straight into that father role with my siblings?
well, like you said, never having children, you not really prepared, or I shouldn't say prepared. You don't really have a concept of what it's going to be like till you're there. And then once you're there, you're kind of you're in it. You don't really have time to think about, what it was like and what was different. Yeah, it was. I mean, when you plan your life out, I probably never. Well, I never planned that to be the course of my life. I would marry someone with 3 kids, and we would have you, and but God works different ways than we work, and that's what He had planned. So even though it was not planned, I would not trade it or change it for anything.
Yeah.
It works. He works it all out for the best.
When you started, I mean, you kind of become that stepfather role even when you and mom are dating. Was there anyone that you went to for any parenting advice or any dad advice? Or, because I know you guys, what year was it that you and mom met?
We met in 1992.
Yeah, so Grandpa had passed away.
Grandpa
in
had passed away a
86.
few years before that. So
Yeah, so
and, most of the guys I hung out with were young guys. I mean, some of them were married, maybe had some kids. I don't even remember. But I didn't know anybody who was in the situation that I was in that had done that.
Yeah.
There wasn't really a lot of people to go to and get advice from.
So it was a lot of just figuring things out.
Just figure it out as you go. I mean, I was very fortunate that your mom, she was a single mom for like 3 years, over 3 years. So, I mean, she had it down. So I just had to kind of step in and follow her lead on that a little bit because she had it down. I mean, she was, it was just her and the 3 kids living in a little house for a long time.
Yeah. Also very impressive, too.
Yeah.
Single mom with 3 kids. Shout out to Mom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was the one. So, we got together, and Mom always said that God brought us together. She's totally 100% convinced of that, that God brought us together just at the time we needed to be brought together. So she tells the story that she said, she didn't date very much because she had 3 kids she had to take care of after her husband passed away. But she said she finally was just like, she didn't want to date. She didn't want to do the traditional dating. Back then, there was no social media or anything like that. So
not on Tinder back then.
Yeah, no dating apps. You had to go out and meet people wherever.
Yeah. It's
bars
hard to go to a bar when you have 3
things
small
like
children.
that. Yeah, and that's not what she wanted to do. She's never been that type of person. She just told someone one day, she said, I'm tired. I'm not going to do all that and go through all that. She says, when God's ready, he will send a person to my door. And that's basically the first time I ever met her was when I knocked on her front door. The first time we went out.
Yeah, because it was babysitter or nanny, right? That set you guys up. One of your students, right?
One of my students, one of my athletes on the track team. Yeah.
How did that conversation go? How did she bring that up to you?
One day at track, we were talking about something, and she goes, "Are you married, Coach?" I go, "No, I'm not married." She's like, "Well, I know someone. I think you guys would be good together." And she said, "Can I tell her, ask her if you can call her?" Or, I don't remember exactly how the conversation went. And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. And get her number and give me her number and talk to her first, and then I'll call her after you talk to her." And then she said, "Well, she has 3 kids." And her husband passed away. And I'm like, "Well, okay. Well, let's see what happens."
Oh, wow. But, so, you went in knowing that before.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't expect really anything to, I didn't know what was going to happen. Wasn't looking to marry her and have a wife at that point in my life, but
I thought your first question would be how old is she? Because when a high school student's telling you they got a friend. She
told me she had 3 kids. I figured,
but then if she led with that,
close to my age.
She'd at least be out of high school a few years at that point.
Yeah, and then it all came about pretty fast after that. So.
Yeah,
I think it was God's hand in it. Yeah, he moved it right along.
Yeah, you guys were dating for 6 months before you got married.
About 6 months. We met in April and we got married in October. We had planned to get married in December, like when we had a little break from school because I was coaching football and teaching and coaching football and basketball. Yeah, and then we just decided we're going to wait till December.
Yeah, and I know that you were coaching because Mom always says after your wedding, the next day you went to practice.
We had I remember the weekend, we had a football game in Kalinga on Friday night. I was the head JV football coach at that time and got home late at night from Kalinga. I got up early the next morning, drove to Lake Tahoe. My 2 coaches that I coached with, they were there too. Nick and Cherie, Mom's friends from across the street, were there, and Grandma was there, and then my aunt, and I think maybe one of my cousins who lived in Lake Tahoe at the time were there. We had a Saturday afternoon wedding, and all went to dinner, and then got up the next morning to Sunday, drove back to Fresno, and I had a coaches meeting in the afternoon, and right back to work on Monday morning.
Yeah. So you were born in a time technically before video games even existed.
Yep.
What was your first memory of playing or seeing a video game?
The first video game I ever remember, and it may have been the first video game ever, was Pong.
Yeah, Pong. I think the first video game made was called Table Tennis, and then Pong came.
And then
right
Pong
after
came, and usually they were mostly in arcades. Now I do remember. I think one of my cousins that lived in Fireball. I think it was Atari was the first system that hooked it to their TV.
Yeah, got one right there.
Yeah. So, but I think the first time I ever saw it or played it was in an arcade.
Okay, where was the closest arcade to you? Or was it at the coast?
It was. We were on vacation. I think we were in Lake Tahoe actually.
Oh, okay, yeah. Arcades were popular usually in the vacation spots.
Yeah, and at the casinos, because you could put the kids in the arcade. It was like it was kind of like Chuck E. Cheese. Like they'd put you in there and you couldn't get out unless they came and signed you back out. So you couldn't. You were locked into the arcade until they came and got you.
That's funny.
Got you back. But I think that was the first time I ever played Pong. I ever saw. Mostly it was pinball. All the arcade games were pinball games.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are kind of like a video game. I think technically they're just considered their own category of games. Yeah. But they're a lot fancier now too. Where they have light ups and screens now, so they are kind of like video games now.
Then they were they had lights and they were noisy and made noise and bells rang and things. Yeah. So that's how it attracted you to play them. But
video games were a big part of our childhood. I know Mom liked to play video games.
Mom did.
That was a hobby of hers she got from being a single mom, I think.
Because when it was just her and the kids, they would just play video games at home, and then they would go to sleep, and she would just stay up. Yeah. It was like her only me time.
Yeah.
And play video games. She couldn't, she didn't want to go anywhere, but
yeah, and so
she just stayed up and played video games. I don't know what they even played at that time. I don't know what their favorite games were. But.
Yeah, I never. Yeah, my youngest memory, or my youngest memory of seeing her play a video game was probably on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I think that's what she had that she played on. And so me and all my siblings liked video games as little kids, and we played a lot of video games. And now I'm a dad, and I still play video games. I have this podcast about video games. Don't get to play as much as I used to, but I want to share that experience, hopefully with my son Sid and my future kids. And the video games are a lot different today than they were back then. So my wife Savannah and I, we've had a few discussions about how we want to introduce that to them, and screen time is like a big thing right now.
Right.
The research now says not to have your kids have that much screen time, especially when they're younger infants and before they turn 2 years old. Did you and Mom ever discuss things like that, about what kind of video games you wanted us to play or not play, or how much time you wanted us to spend?
Yeah, I don't think time was really an issue. I don't think people were like really concerned about screen time.
Yeah.
During that time, and that was how people you babysit your kids, or you had to do something. You just put the TV on and let them watch TV, so they would sit quietly in one room, and you could go do things about the house that you could do. And then when video games came, that was kind of the same thing. I play video games, and and the world was starting to change a little bit. It wasn't like when I was a kid where you just go out and stay outside all day and run around, and really your parents, they knew where you were, but you kind of just ran around with your friends around the neighborhood, and they weren't too worried about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, in a small town too, like Dos Palace, it's a lot safer to do that.
When you guys were little, things were kind of changing. It's not like you could just roam around the neighborhood freely very much.
Fresno, not the safest city.
Not the safest. Any city's not the safest, like a small town. But so she liked to play too, so that was part of it.
Yeah.
So she would play with you guys, and you guys would watch her play and do things. And the games were a lot different, like you said. I remember you guys playing like Mario Kart, and I can't think of all the games you guys used to play.
Yeah, a big difference too from when I was a little kid playing video games is we usually played a game for a little bit, and then we'd either beat it or get bored of it, and then you got to find something else to do. And we didn't have, we weren't buying new games every week or month, so usually we had to wait till like the next holiday to get a new game. But now games, there's free-to-play games, there's all these mobile games, and the whole point of the game is to try and keep the person playing the game for as long as possible. And coming on every day. So that's one of the big discussion points is like, how do we limit that? And, video game addiction is like kind of like a trending kind of mental health issue now too. With games being designed to get people to play as long as they can. And little kids are susceptible to that. When something is fun, they want to do it for as long as they can.
Sure.
So they will keep doing it if you don't limit it or try and stop them. So.
Yeah, now there's so many devices. Back then you just had to hook up, whatever you had hooked up to your TV was the only place you could play a video game. And then I know some handheld ones were starting to come out. I remember you guys having some handheld ones.
Yeah, we played the Game Boy. And we had the handheld Sega too.
Game Boy and Sega.
A little more of a rare one now. I remember you had a game on that Sega, that handheld one. You had a golf game.
I had a golf game. Fred Couples Golf.
Yeah.
Fred Couples Golf.
And you did play some video games, like sports games.
Sports games.
Yeah.
That was the only games I could. The only game I could beat you guys in was NCAA football.
Yeah, I
remember playing that game.
And Madden too. You could beat us at Madden.
Yeah, man. We didn't play as much Madden, I don't think, as we played NCAA football.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
That was it. And then we had the NFL Blitz. That was a fun game, but.
Yeah, that's one that I could win at because it was
guys,
not real football.
You and Chris were both hard to beat at that game.
Yeah.
It was a little bit easier to beat you at NC2A football.
Yeah, but NC2A was a lot more strategy.
You had to kind of
you had a lot more,
play football.
You had a lot more knowledge about football and what plays to run at what times, and I was just throwing Hail Marys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember sports games like Fred Couples on that handheld Sega. I remember Tiger Woods, one of the first Tiger Woods games. You had it on your laptop, your like a work computer, maybe it was a personal one.
Oh yeah, no, it was our personal computer.
Yeah, and you had that Tiger Woods.
I think we had that on one of the systems too. I remember playing Tiger Woods on the TV.
Yeah, after that one, we bought a few of them. We had it on the PS2 and the
PS2,
and the GameCube. I think we had like the Tiger Woods like 2003 and some of the early 2000 ones.
Right.
And those were a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
I like the golf games.
Those old games.
Yeah.
Fun times. But yeah, the first game that we were like leery of or a little bit wary of was I knew I was going to forget the name of it when I came on here.
See, there's a few back then when I was little. There was Mortal Kombat and Grand Theft Auto were the two.
Yeah,
those are the two ones that had the most media attention.
Right.
And warnings. I mean, Mortal Kombat is what created the whole video game rating system.
Yeah. But what was the game that it was zombies? You fought against zombies.
Oh, Resident Evil. We played a lot.
Resident Evil. So I remember you guys wanted to play Resident Evil so bad. And Mom was like, no, that's not a good game. I think that's about the time when ratings came out, too.
Yeah, it was around there, yeah.
And I think that was a rated M for mature.
The first Resident
Evil. T for teen or whatever.
It was like the early 90s on the PlayStation.
The first one. So, we wouldn't let you rent that game or play those types of games. But then somehow Chris got a hold of it. I think Joey or somebody had it. His friend Joey had it. And he brought it home and he's like, can I play it? Can I play it? And your mom said...
That's good that he asked and didn't.
Yeah, he did ask. He didn't just put it on. So your mom she was like fixing dinner or something, and I got home from practice or whatever, and she said, she told me, go in there and watch and see what this game's all about. Check it out before you let them play it. I go, okay, that's good enough. So I put the game on. All I remember it was there was like an old like haunted mansion or like Victorian mansion, and you went into that house, and then when you got into the house, the zombies started coming from all over, and you just started like firing at them and shooting at them. And I just started playing. I'm like, this is great. This is like the best game ever. And I remember Mom just being in the kitchen like, how is that game? And I'm like, oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's good. They'll be fine with it. Then I just remember you and Chris and I sitting there playing it that night and fighting the zombies off as they came.
Yeah, because Resident Evil was it was a pretty cutting edge game when it came out.
Yeah, it was.
It was 3D and it had visual cutscenes and stuff.
I remember very graphic too.
Yeah,
I think she made us put change the blood to green. You could change the color. And they would bleed like green blood instead of red. And she's like, well, that's a little bit better. It's not like real blood coming out of them.
That's funny. And back then it was just like, polygon shapes of blood.
Yeah.
It didn't even look realistic even when it was red.
Red or green.
Yeah, but that's funny. Yeah, I know. Mom was, both of you guys always had kind of things like that where it's like, well, you can change the blood color, then it's okay.
Yeah.
I remember watching movies too as little kids, because we would watch some R-rated movies, especially like action movies and stuff like that. Mom was always like, well, as long as, there's not too much cussing or nudity, it's okay. Predator was okay.
Predator was okay.
Not too much cussing.
Because it was so, out of the realm of reality.
Yeah.
Like they would be fighting this wild looking monster on this island or
Yeah.
something. It was so fantasy that you would never believe that that's really happening
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. So not so you guys weren't too worried about it. I mean, we didn't play. I mean, other than like Resident Evil, I don't think we played too many.
No, I don't
violent
think you
games.
guys had. Maybe later on in life, but
I
you guys
remember
got
my-
older. It was you guys could figure it out. It wasn't reality.
Yeah. And I remember one of my first memories actually of ever playing a video game was in your PE office on your computer, because you guys had that old like Gateway or Macintosh computer, and you had one of the coaches had Doom installed on it.
Yeah.
And I would play Doom on there. And yeah, that's like one of my earliest memories, I think, of actually playing a game.
That game
by
was pretty
myself.
mild compared to now.
Yeah.
Games nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, then it was crazy, but
Yeah, that was another game that probably got a lot of media attention just for being like too violent or something. But yeah, compared to games nowadays, no one would bat an eye at it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I still like Doom a lot. Still play it every now and then.
they still have it, huh? They even made movies about it.
Oh yeah, the game series still is making games. They have the newest one that came out a couple years back. Actually, it's probably been like 3 years now that it came out. I mean, it looks a lot different now than it did back then with its
I'm sure.
2D
I'm sure.
pixels.
Excuse me. So the other thing I remember about video games was just the fact we would try to play like family games together, like Mario Kart, multi-purpose or multi-player games. I remember Mario Kart and Mario Party.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anything else that we had, but it never seemed to end well when we had family games. Somebody would get mad and like storm off.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't play too many board games.
No.
But we played a lot of Mario Kart and Mario Party.
Mario Kart and Mario
Mario
Party.
Party was like a kind of like a virtual board game.
Right.
But yeah, I know we'd all get upset. I remember
For
getting
stealing
upset.
your rewards from each other.
Yeah.
Mario Kart shooting, people would shoot you and knock your cart off the track and
Yeah. Mario Kart's pretty rage
steal your points and your stars and all that.
Yeah. It's a good way to teach some coping skills, though.
Yeah.
I feel like it helped us out in the long run to be
sure.
how to regulate ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know how well we regulated ourselves, but
Probably not too well.
but it was a lot of fun. I have more good memories playing Mario Kart and Mario Party than I do bad
Oh,
ones
yeah,
of
for
people
sure.
getting mad. So
For
it was
sure.
still pretty far and in between that would happen.
Yeah.
But so a lot of the audience that listen to this show are soon-to-be fathers or new fathers and new mothers too. Got some female listeners out there. What's a message or piece of advice you would give to a new parent?
Wow. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, you could rattle off more than one.
Okay. Well, I think the most important thing you can do especially as a father, probably as a parent, but for sure as a father, there's two things that I've learned. The first one is you need to show your children how much you love the Lord. That's the first and foremost one. And the second thing is you need to show your children how much you love your wife.
That's
Because
a good one.
that's their mom, and they have to see that you love her and that you guys are in it together and not at odds with each other. And that's sometimes it's hard to do because there's going to be things you disagree on.
Mm-hmm.
And the old adage is never to disagree in front of the kids on something. You can do that in private time.
Yeah.
If you disagree, you have to be a united front when you're
Mm-hmm.
standing in front of your children. I think that's the two biggest.
Yeah. And you and Mom were most of the time. It's probably
I
like maybe
think
one
so.
or two times I've ever seen you guys argue
Yeah,
about something.
I'm sure there was, but for the most part, I think we were.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, especially I hear too when I talk to older parents or people who are empty nesters now. The kids leave one day and then it's back to you and your wife. So
Yeah.
You want to make sure you're fostering that relationship because you guys are going to be spending a lot more time together after the kids are out of the house.
Yeah.
So that was good advice.
So yeah, and you asked me earlier about role models and examples of parents, and because I didn't really have a lot when I first married your mom, but I got the thing about loving your wife, showing your kids you love your wife. I got that from Coach Galigian, and if I had to pick a mentor, he'd probably be the one that as far as parenting goes, because when I met him, he had kids, He ended up having 4 kids, but I think might have already had 3 when I met him. I know he had at least 2. I think he had John already. So, but he was really, family was a big focus to him. Even though he was a football coach and he was very into what he was doing as a football coach, he still was very big on family and including his kids. His kids were always running around, even when they were little at practice. And then I think all 3 of them ended up coaching with us at one time or another. All 3 of his boys. I don't know if John ever did, but they all played for us at Central, and I know Paul and Patrick coached a little bit while they were there. But he was the one who always told me, you have to show your kids how much you love your wife, how much you love their mom. So that's what they'll see. That's what that's what they'll practice throughout their lives with their mom and with their wives when they finally get married.
Yeah. Even with my son Sid being, only 1 year old, so much of parenting is just modeling things for him.
Right.
Everything I do, he tries to copy, and then, everything he sees Savannah do, they try and copy. So even as they get older, I feel like it's still going to be a lot of modeling.
Yeah,
to them.
For sure it is. I mean, that's how they learn. They're sitting and watching. They can't communicate at this stage of their life. They just sit and watch and try to figure out what they should do.
Now you're on the opposite side of the spectrum of fatherhood, where you're entering your grandfather role. You got lots of grandkids now, and you're retired now, so you're not working. What are some things you're looking forward to in retirement and being a grandfather?
Well,
any goals or aspirations? Anything you want to accomplish in your retirement?
Not really. That's kind of what retirement is. You've done all your.
I guess that's true.
You've reached your goals and accomplished what you want to accomplish in your career, and it's time to move on somewhere else. But no, having grandkids is the best. I mean, it's they're truly gifts that you get, and they're easier to deal with your own kids because you just leave when you don't want to deal with it anymore. Tell their parents, take care of this.
Yeah.
But you also want to, be part of their lives and be mentors and models for them. I think it's the same as you do with your kids. I think you got to show the same types of things. It's a little bit different because, your mom and I, we don't want to try to micromanage how you raise your kids. You got to figure that out on your own a little bit, but at the same time, sometimes it's hard when you see things and you want to say something, but you say, no, I'm not going to say anything. Let them figure it out. But if you see something, obviously if it's something that's not going to be safe or something like that, you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, you better think about this before you do it or whatever. But
yeah, I'm sure I'm sure me and my siblings, if you did have something you want to share with us, we'd be open to listening to it.
Well, I think
probably not in the moment if we're
not
struggling
not
with
in
something.
the heat of the moment, but
I'd always be open to hearing things. That's why part of the reason why I wanted to have you on. I never gotten a chance to really ask you these questions too about parenting.
Right.
Now I have a kid, so
now you got
better ask now while he's young, so I'm not asking when he's 15, 16 years old. What I should be doing.
But it's, it truly is a learn by doing thing.
Every kid is so different, too.
Every kid is different. I just saw a thing today that said you have your first kid, you do all these things, and you learn all the things to do right and what you did wrong, and you feel so prepared, and then you have a second kid, and he's completely different. Than the first kid. It's like you start all over again.
Yeah.
With what you're going to do, because they usually are pretty different.
Yeah. I remember with Sid, my son, he's never liked being in the stroller. He's never liked the car seat. It's always he always cries every time he has to go, and anything that constrains him. Doesn't like to be constrained by anything. So we bought, the nicest stroller we could. We bought the nicest car seat, hoping like if we buy this fancy one, he's gonna like it and be more comfortable. And still hates it. So we're really hoping that if we have a second one, that they're gonna be really into the fancy car seat and stroller.
Well, you got them now, so you might as well use them. I think every kid's car seats are kind of like that for every kid.
Yeah, I don't know. So many parents have told me, they're like, "Oh, don't worry, he's gonna fall asleep as soon as he goes in the car."
Well, you were kind of like that. You fall asleep in the car a lot.
Yeah, I fall asleep now a lot anywhere.
I've always been a sleeper. You had two sisters and a brother with you, antagonizing you, but But you guys all did on long trips.
Yeah. I remember Mom saying that too.
Asleep.
When
Mom does that too. She still does. She falls asleep from here back to our house sometimes.
Yeah. But I remember Mom telling me when my siblings were really young, she'd always drive to like the coast and stuff because that's the only time when
They'd get in the car, they would fall asleep.
Yeah. So she did a lot of beach
around.
trips when they were younger.
Yeah.
All right. So I just thought of this question right now when I was asking you about like grandfather role. And are there things that you're looking forward to doing with Sid or your other grandkids that you did with us as kids? Like, are there things that we did as kids that you want to do with your grandkids?
Sure. I've come off the top of my head with something right now.
Yeah. I would just mean like maybe like a trip we did as kids that you really like that you think grandkids would really like too, or...
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things. I mean, there's, always amusement parks and things like that are always fun. Mom and I aren't a huge fan of Disneyland, but there's other places.
Yeah.
Universal Studios, cool place.
Yeah. Would you be down to go to an amusement park next time we take Sid?
Maybe. Maybe. We'll see what's going on.
All right, because we could use some extra hands.
I know it's always nice
helpful
to have extra hands there when you're doing this. But we used to take you guys. Seems like I always had someone with this grandma or someone.
Yeah.
And we hardly ever, well, I wouldn't say hardly ever, but like amusement parks, it didn't seem like we always went all together. It seemed like there was always somebody doing something else or...
Yeah. We went to I remember we went to all the major ones, at least once with you guys.
Yeah.
And then we went a lot with like
go with other
Grandma
people
and Grandpa Martin.
Yeah.
So the opposite kind of that question, is there anything you're looking forward to doing with your grandkids that you didn't get a chance to do with your kids?
Sure. I think one of the things that we kind of skipped over it when we were talking about before about when I grew up, but and I mentioned it briefly that we traveled a lot and we camped a lot, did things like that, which we never really did with you guys. I wish, in hindsight, that's probably one thing I wish we would have done more of and started as a routine of doing that type of thing, because it's something I really enjoyed when I was young. Of course, it was, schedules and things like that always get in the way. I mean, you make the time, you can make the time, anything. You just have to prioritize what you're doing. But we never really did a lot of that. I don't think Mom was real hip on it. It's not her thing.
Yeah.
But she would have gone and she would have done. And we did a little bit of it. And Grandma used to go with Grandma and do some of it. So you guys were getting a little bit of it. But I wish we would have done more things like that and been involved in more things like that. And maybe with the grandkids we can do a little bit more of that. Mom and I've talked about buying an RV or some similar type thing like that.
There we go. A little bit of glamping.
I think she could go with that.
Yeah, she'd be more into that, I think, than sleeping under the stars.
Yeah. So that's one thing, I look forward to. But, the other things are just the normal things everybody does. I'm looking forward to them, when they get into school and, whatever activities they get involved in. I don't know what they're going to be drawn to.
Yeah. Would you ever coach a little league team?
Oh, man. I'm going to say no.
No.
I had my coaching days and they're done.
Okay. Maybe just
I'll just be a fan.
Some private practices.
Private
workouts.
practices, and I'll just support from the sidelines as much as I can.
Yeah. That's how you were too when I was growing up. You were never you weren't one of the overbearing parents on the team.
No, we just kind of let it go. You had good coaches. You had Joe, and he was such a good coach.
Yeah, and I think you being a coach too, you knew not to.
Yeah, I wasn't going to interfere.
Interfere too much.
When you're at the game, you're a parent. You're not a coach.
Yeah.
I know people coach their kids and like coaching their kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you guys would have played football or basketball or whatever, and I was coaching, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, I think that was my last question.
That's it?
Yeah.
Got through all those questions?
Yep, I think so. I don't think I missed any. Well, then I think that's a wrap. So thank you, Dad, for coming on with me. If it's Father's Day and you're listening to this, make sure call or text your dad. Let him know you're thinking of him. If you don't have a dad in your life, maybe reach out to a father figure, played a part in your life, or maybe a friend who recently became a dad. Let them know you're proud of them. And thank you for listening to this special Father's Day episode. Peace.